Welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast. My name is Anthony Oliver, and today we're talking about skills and the challenge facing contractors to build a productive workforce fit for the future. Now, the UK is in the middle of a huge moment for infrastructure. Government's committed to a long-term national infrastructure strategy, has published a £725 billion pipeline and repeated its commitment to build for the future. And all this points towards a sector finally moving beyond decades of stop-start investment. Yet, on the ground, delivery remains under pressure. Projects are competing for the same finite pool of people. Productivity stubbornly lags behind other sectors. And despite tens of thousands of people entering construction-related training each year, in many cases, too many never translate that training into long-term jobs. Well, my guest today is Matt Cannon, Chief Executive of major contracting group Clancy, someone who understands and faces this challenge, this fundamental tension, day in, day out. So I hope he'll give us something of a reality check, because while the industry is being asked to scale at pace, modernise how it builds, adopt digital tools and deliver safer, more efficient outcomes, it continues to operate in a system that too often lacks long-term certainty. Short forward order books, fragmented procurement and a skills system that still leans heavily on supply rather than real demand continues to undermine confidence to invest in people. Apprenticeships and long-term training programs are critical, but they take time to mature and they rely on employers believing that work will still be there in 2, 5 or 10 years' time. So the question is no longer whether skills matter, it's whether the UK infrastructure system is set up to support the workforce it says it needs. And of course, what needs to change to turn ambition into delivery. So let's find out more from the coalface of contracting. Matt, welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast.
Hi, Anthony. Great to be with you. Thank you for having me along.
Well, Matt, let's start by getting an understanding of the UK infrastructure sector skills challenge. At Clancy, you directly employ the vast majority of your staff, and I talked a bit about the big skills picture, but if you strip away those headlines, what do you see as the real skills challenges facing UK infrastructure today?
Well, I think that it's a really interesting time for UK infrastructure. There's a lot of positivity in the workplace. I think certainly the markets we work in across water and energy and some of the major infrastructure programs, the likes of HS2 and Sizewell C, there's lots of positivity, there's lots of opportunity out there. I think the challenge that we see is there's a big piece around attraction. There's a big piece about retention and development. And really for us, it's about how do we address those kind of challenges in the right, most efficient, productive manner.
Yeah. So, I talked about some of the challenges. How much would you say the current skills problem, therefore, is genuinely about shortages of people? You talked about attraction and retention, but how much is it a symptom of uncertainty in the pipeline and this continued stop-start investment we've seen?
Well, I think probably one of the biggest challenges isn't just about the shortage today, it's the shortage and the challenge we can see coming.
Right, yeah.
I think where we're at is that actually, in lots of ways today, people haven't really hit their full stride, if you like, that there is a known demand coming. And I think the concern is all about how we're going to match that demand in reality. I think where we are seeing that kind of challenge coming, we can see the government talking about house building numbers and house building targets. We can see huge programs of investment across all forms of infrastructure. I think the biggest challenge that we all can see and can recognise is that when that comes to fruition and it's not quite there yet, how do we match it then? And I think that's where we have this challenge with early talent, with not seeing enough new, fresh young people coming into the sector. There's a bit of a cannibalisation piece, and there's a real risk, I think, of inflationary wage increases as people start sort of a war for talent rather than developing enough new talents.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we were talking at the recent Transforming Infrastructure Performance Summit with Mark Reynolds from Mace, and of course he leads the Construction Leadership Council and the Construction Skills Mission Board, he was talking about this challenge between a demand-led, or the need for a demand-led economy rather than a skills-led economy. Do you recognise that challenge of just simply not having the jobs for the people we're training?
Well, I think that is part of the challenge, absolutely. I think there's a gap between the training that's being done and when the jobs are actually needed. I think there's definitely shifting to a more demand-led space where I think people can see the numbers, can see the level of delivery that's required. But if it's not there today, it's very difficult from a contractor's perspective to start employing people when you haven't got fully productive jobs for them.
Yeah.
I think the contracting sector has always been quite a low margin environment. Employing people when there isn't really a full-time job is not something that contractors have historically been able to do.
Yeah. Well, as I said, Clancy, it's a family-owned business. It's formed in 1958, and you do employ a lot of directly employed staff. You've also been running an apprenticeship program for over 20 years now. I mean, there's a huge amount of focus on apprenticeships, and most recently V-levels, vocational level training.
Yeah.
I mean, is that the correct approach? Was the industry being driven in the right direction by government?
I think apprenticeships for me are definitely part of the solution. I don't think they're the whole solution to the problem we've got. I think there has historically been probably too much emphasis on apprenticeships that are long-term training courses. I think we need to be able to blend long-term kind of training and development with some shorter-term mobilisations. We need to be able to bring people into the sector, make sure that they're safely trained, accredited and skilled to a level, but there doesn't have to be a full-time apprentice. And I think we've seen in recent months a bit of a positive shift, I think, from government to be able to access more funding through shorter-term training programmes, which I think is a real shift in the right direction, because I don't think apprenticeships are the answer for everything. We're very proud to have probably about 50 full-time apprentices, and we're using the levy to fund about 90 other kind of development paths for people. But we're also doing a huge amount of other training that's really important. We probably deliver about 10,000 training days a year. And some of that is about how do we make sure that people are able to go to work safely with core skills but aren't necessarily full apprenticeships. Yeah.
I think I'm right in saying you've got a pretty established strategy of reinvesting profits into people and tools and training.
Yeah.
From a contractor's perspective, I mean, what does the lack of long-term planning, and hopefully we're getting around that now by having the department, but it's certainly been there for quite a long while. What does it actually do in terms of the decisions you make on the ground? What does it force, or what behaviours does it force a business like Clancy towards?
Well, I think the danger is if you don't have that long-term picture is you end up with short-term behaviours. We've always taken pride in the fact that we're a direct employment business. We're really proud of the fact that we've got 2,500 direct members of the team. But I think the challenge is if you're thinking short term, that brings other inherent risks with it. I think the key one for us has always been safety. We're really clear that by having our own direct workforce, managing, controlling their training, the quality of that training, it leads to a safer working environment, a safer sort of workforce. And really, for us, everything hangs off that. We really think about safety as our license to operate.
Yeah. So when you're talking about the value of a trained workforce, then safety is sort of fundamental bit, but presumably it also unlocks a whole load of other areas around productivity and delivery confidence, your ability to actually do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, it's a really important part of that kind of quality control process. So safety is sort of the gateway piece for me in lots of ways, but actually be able to give our clients confidence around consistent, high quality delivery. I think that training piece and that consistency of workforce plays a huge part in what we're able to offer our clients over the long term, which is great.
Yeah. The challenge, though, Matt, of course, is that building good long-term training schemes and training processes, it takes time.
It does.
And you're in the process of balancing the need to boost productivity on site now, and often finding trained staff, people with those skills immediately is a better, quicker way to deliver that kind of productivity rather than investing in to build those deep skills and careers over a long term. How do you balance that?
Well, and you're absolutely. It is a balance. It is a balance between short-termism and a bit of a longer-term planning. I think we're lucky to work with a number of the UK's regulated utilities that are delivering plans across AMP cycles or ED periods where actually they've got to think both short-term and long-term. So while there is today pressure, there's also a need to make sure that we've got the right workforce for the next 5, 8, and longer years. So it is always a trade-off. But we've been able to manage our workforce. I think our direct delivery process allows us to ensure the training is delivered in line with the needs of the operating business. It also allows us to focus on things like, using the experience that we've got in our team to help others. So we're very lucky. We've got a long established workforce. We've got over 500 people with 10 years experience, probably another 100 people with over 20 years experience. So how we actually filter down that working practical knowledge is also really important as qualifications and classroom education.
Yeah, and I imagine it's all about, as you said earlier, having systems in place to retain those staff to make sure that they continue to want to work for Clancy. Yeah,
look, I think we're really clear. I said earlier on, it's about the attraction, but the retention piece I think is huge. I think one of the risks the sector faces is that people will come in and then leave. We'll invest in them, we'll develop those skills and then leave. We're really focused on trying to ensure that we're a great place to work for, not just a business that trains people, but a business that people want to work for and really see the ability to fulfill their own career ambitions, Anthony.
Well, we'll talk a bit more about Clancy's approach in a moment, but first, just a quick few words on the government's current approach, because it announced a significant £600 million skills package in the spring, designed to see, as it put it, 60,000 more engineers, brickies, sparkies and chippies trained by 2029. And it committed to new technical colleges in August. And it's all great words. I suppose what's still missing then if we are serious about converting training into sustained employment?
Well, I think the challenge of all this is those people have got to have jobs to go to.
Yeah.
So I think there is always a bit of a gap, I think, between the sentiment, and I think we are seeing some really positive sentiment from government around the need and the recognition to train people, but also that, and you mentioned it earlier, the certainty of work is the key thing for making sure people then employ those people.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of my concerns when I hear some of the language that government uses, we seem to think about construction in house building terms. Some of the skills that you've already listed in terms of the quote that comes from government is quite a lot about house building, which isn't sort of hitting its strides just yet. But there are lots of opportunities across infrastructure. I look at our business and think we've got vacancies across the realms of frontline site roles through to head office and back office support. We've got to make sure that people have got the certainty of work, that then when those people are trained, there are jobs for them to go to. Otherwise, we'll lose them.
Yeah, because that goes back to that skills-led system rather than a demand-led one.
Yes.
So in terms of flipping that, what will it take to flip that around?
Well, I think we're lucky that we're seeing some of that. I think if I look at the work we're doing across the water sector as a particular example, we're seeing that demand coming to life. So actually, we've probably taken on 500 people in the last 6 months. So we're seeing that, and we're able to match that demand with jobs, which is really exciting. I think my worry is that that's not the case sort of unilaterally across all of the areas the way we know the investment's coming. So I think the key thing, as I said, is to make sure that those people can see a career pipeline, that they can invest in training. Organisations are able to employ them with the confidence that they're going to be properly utilised individuals in their business.
Yeah, and I suppose also it's focusing on what's happening in the regions rather than, or different parts of the UK, rather than just focusing on national targets, because you work all around the country.
Yes.
So therefore, national targets are great, but it's also identifying and understanding what the pressures are in the regions.
Absolutely. Look, I think there has to be a complete flex to understand the local idiosyncrasies of what's going on. I think there is challenges, but there are also some great opportunities. I think the big challenge that's coming, as I said right at the start, is this kind of wave of demand that's coming. And I think we can see that in certain sectors where things are advancing quicker, but others aren't quite moving. But if everything gets to the level that people are talking about, that's where I think the real risk is sort of further down the line. Yeah.
But a bit more about Clancy in a moment. But first, let's hear a bit more about you, Matt. You've been CEO of the Clancy Group for the last 7 years, but you've been with the firm for, over 25 years, having joined initially in 1997 before going to university. It is literally in your blood. Your grandfather is Michael J. Clancy, who founded the firm back in 1958. But you've really worked your way up through the business from regional director and before that performance manager in Scotland. I mean, was there an expectation that you had to join the family firm, Matt?
No expectation whatsoever, really. I've done all sorts of different jobs in my time with the business, from working in gap years after school to, on the tools and out with the guys on a water R&M contract to the job I've got now. I think I've had 15 different roles in my time with the business. And look, I went into the business originally to get something on my CV. But I've loved it. I absolutely love the business. I'm very proud of the family legacy and the family heritage that my grandfather started and my uncles and aunt took forward. But I absolutely love what we do. I love the business we are. I love our culture, but I also love the work we do. I think, the work we do is so important in terms of the UK's infrastructure. I really enjoy it. It gives me a real kick to get out of bed in the morning, get going and keep driving the business forwards.
So we've just come out of Christmas, a time for family gatherings. Be honest, were you able to not talk about the Clancy business over the family Christmas table?
No, it definitely comes up. I was on holiday for Christmas with my mum and dad and my two sisters. So, there is a bit of glue that the family business provides. So we're always talking about it a little bit. But yeah, it's a really nice glue. We've got a big, wide, Irish background family business. There's lots of us, so it's a great thing to talk about. So no, we don't have too much for a break from it though.
I imagine there's many views and many bits of advice that come your way. Well, you've also got an MBA from Cass Business School, now known as Bayes Business School in London. You've studied at Harvard's Business School in the US. I mean, how has that business qualification really shaped your career and helped you actually in the work you do now?
Oh no, it's been brilliant for me. I think the opportunity to go and talk to different people, get different learning, give yourself a different perspective on things has been really powerful. I think there is always a danger when you're a family business. You've had people come in. I've been in the business a long time, as you say. I think I've really valued being able to go and get involved with people, to challenge my thinking, to think and see what other businesses are doing and what they're doing, and slightly steal with pride, Anthony. There's lots of things that we've learned from other organisations that have made us a better business.
Yeah.
I think for me, when I've been in the business a long time, having the opportunity, in the same way we invest in numbers of people in our business, to go and challenge ourselves, develop our own thinking, our own skill set, I think is really important.
Yeah. So I suppose the question, would you ever leave Clancy?
It's not the plan at the moment. Anyway, let's put it that way. No, I love it. I love the business. It's in my blood, as you say. I think, I can't see me probably going off and working for anybody else particularly. I think I absolutely love what we do, and we're in a really exciting place as a business in a really exciting market. So.
Well, at the start of your career, you were a professional rugby player, I think, with London Irish and I think also London Welsh. I mean, that sounds exciting. How do you get on, and what level do you get to, and what brought it to an end? Oh, no,
I was very lucky. I finished university and I slightly fell into a career for 3 years playing full-time at London Irish, which was brilliant. I loved it. I really enjoyed it, took a lot from it. I was lucky enough to play seven-a-side rugby for England for a couple of years. So I managed to travel the world a little bit. Probably the highlight of my rugby career was winning the Hong Kong Sevens with England back in 2003, which is a long time ago now.
Yeah.
As my sons were keen to tell me over Christmas, they were laughing when they found out the last time I got paid to play rugby was about 2005. So, but no, I loved it. I absolutely enjoyed it thoroughly. Yeah.
Well, back in those days, there weren't that many people being paid, I suppose.
No. In 2003 was a kind of glory year for England, that we won the Six Nations with a Grand Slam, we won the World Cup, and England won the Sevens. So we were kind of in the sort of peak of our powers as a kind of rugby force, really, at that stage.
Well, I spoke to Nathan Marsh at Bentley Systems, of course, who also used to play professional rugby, and we talked about the translation of the rugby team philosophy into business. I mean, how do you see that? Is it helpful?
No, hugely helpful. Absolutely. I mean, I think business has a lot that it can learn from sport. Certainly in my time as CEO particularly, I really have tried to utilise that background in sport around creating a team ethos and culture in our business. I think we've done a lot across the last 7 years to try and drive that forwards, whether it's recognising success through our Celebrating Clancy programme, whether it's developing people through awards and recognition. I think the sport ethos that you get in a team dressing room is often quite different from business. But we've worked really hard to create that camaraderie, to create that kind of ethos of belonging. And I think that's probably the one thing I absolutely take away from my days in sport and try and translate back to business. Because I think if you can get that discretionary effort through that cultural kind of connectivity, it's a huge enabler for business success.
Yeah. Are you still playing?
No, sadly not. No, my playing days are long gone. I've got plenty of legacy damage to my body. I spend a lot of time now on the sidelines. I've got 3 children. I've got 2 boys who are very keen rugby players at 13 and 12, and I spend a lot of my time doing a little bit of coaching, but standing on the sidelines shouting encouragement to them these days.
All right. Anything else you get up to then, apart from just trying to relive your old heydays?
No. I'm still trying to be quite active in the gym and play a bit of golf when the weather's good. I'm definitely a fair weather golfer,
right?
But mainly a taxi driver to my 3 children, driving around the country doing various things these days.
Good stuff. I suppose final thing on rugby, Six Nations is approaching us rapidly. Can anyone challenge the French this year? I mean, you're probably going to say Ireland, but
no, I think England look very good. To be fair, I think Ireland historically, I think they're at an interesting juncture, some sort of transitioning talent coming out, some young guys coming in. But I think England look like a pretty good side. I think the Six Nations should be some really good rugby. I think people like the Scottish team I still think is a really dangerous threat to anybody.
Yeah.
So no, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I'm excited about it.
Okay,
It comes around quickly in the new year, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Yes. Well, we shall see. There's a lot of rugby to play there. So
There is.
Let's go back to Clancy. And I mentioned Clancy's approach to training. You've invested heavily in in-house training. What problem were you trying to solve through that training that the wider training system in the industry perhaps wasn't addressing then?
No, I think we've always recognised that we think that's a really important piece to do yourselves. We think it's a really important part to retaining our workforce, but also developing and progressing people in our business. We've been very lucky that a large number of our businesses of people in senior management have progressed through roles. We are a hands-on operational delivery business. And I think it goes back to the key points I was making earlier on around safety and quality of product. Absolutely, we think if we can control that piece, it makes us a better contracting organisation.
Yeah, and the direct employment, presumably owning that employment relationship changes your approach to skills compared with perhaps more fragmented labour models. You've got more skin in the game, in effect.
Yeah, no, we definitely do. I think other organisations and other types of delivery model will expect people to arrive with those skills. We take a much more sort of proactive approach in making sure that we've got those right skills in order to deliver the services we're providing to our clients, and I think it sets us apart. There's a few organisations that have similar approaches, but I think we think it's part of our sort of uniqueness, really.
Yeah, you mentioned retention earlier. You've certainly got a lot of particularly long-serving employees at Clancy. What does that tell you, or what does it tell the industry about the link between good training progression and the generation of loyalty in the sector?
I think if you can give people the ability to see career opportunity, to see employment certainty, I think that's really important. We've been very lucky, I think, with working predominantly within the framework environments. It gives us that certainty of work, which is definitely helpful. I think the short-term contracts that come to an end and with gaps and, in terms of programs and plans, that becomes much more challenging. But for us, it's been really important to make sure that we can provide that kind of future foresight and visibility to people, and that's definitely played a huge part in our retention.
Yeah, and there's a big contrast with quite a large proportion of the industry, which of course doesn't have that same direct employment relationship. Is that for you a key a mistake, I suppose, that other parts of the industry makes?
Well, I think it's a challenge, definitely. I think the more certainty people can give, the better visibility of programs of work, the earlier people can award contracts and get that plan out, that definitely plays a huge part.
Yeah.
I think the problem you get is when there's lack of continuity, that's when people will, they will move. There's always been a bit of sort of turbulence in the sector linked to pay. And I think that's one of the risks I definitely see with the demand coming.
But I imagine that people, particularly contractors down the tiers, they would say that's fine for you to say that, Matt. But we are operating with just a few months forward work. It's really hard to retain directly employed staff because we don't know whether we're going to have any work for them in the next 6 months or so. How does that lack of forward work planning really undermine the industry's ability to train, hire, and modernise at scale?
Look, it absolutely does. I think it really does fundamentally undermine it because people won't carry resource that doesn't have a job. If they don't have a role for those people to deliver, then those people will make those difficult decisions. I think for us, we try and work very much with our supply chain so that we make sure that they know what work's coming as well. So we're obviously predominantly directly delivering, but we also have a quite significant supply chain that works with us. And we would try and give those people as much visibility as we can, so that they know that works there, so that they know that they've got certainty of continuity with us. And I think that can be scaled in more of the industry than it maybe is.
Yeah, and that scaling comes down, I imagine, to the relationship that you have as a major contractor with the clients to make sure that they are procuring in a way that enables you to encourage long-term investment in people.
Absolutely. I think a lot of it's about integration. So a lot of it is about making sure that you understand what's happening, that you have that kind of relationship on an ongoing basis, and you can see what's happening. And I guess, look, there's always periods of time where it's not quite as productive as we'd like it to be. But if you know it's coming, you can ride that through. Yeah. I think and so, it's that sort of hand in glove approach between contractors and clients becomes incredibly important.
You reflected on the government's reference to chippies and brickies and a lot of skills that are traditionally in the house building industry. But we are moving to an era of digital technology and AI really becoming integral to the way that infrastructure businesses like yourselves actually delivers. I mean, productivity remains stubbornly low in the sector. I mean, how much is down to lack of skills, and how much is it down to fragmented adoption of these vital digital skills?
Well, look, I think AI and technology is clearly going to play a huge part in the evolution of the sector. I don't think we're going to see AI necessarily doing some of the hands-on work anytime soon. So I think in lots of ways, the construction sector as a whole should be really attractive for people, because there is going to be definitely change coming in lots of sectors. I think it's making sure that we integrate those tools in the right way for the right ends, really. I think there's definitely huge amounts that we can get and we can benefit across the spectrum, from health and safety at the front line to back office support and efficiency. And we've got to make sure people have got the right skills for it. I think you're right. People talk a lot about digital skills, but I think I think for me, it's about digital skills that are practically useful.
Yeah.
So how do you integrate those, with your day-to-day role to become more productive?
Yeah. So it's making sure the core trades are digitally enabled.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for me, it's about enhancement, not replacement. And I think people sort of get quite scared when we talk about AI, because actually we think, well, we're doing away with jobs. But actually, it's about how do we make people more efficient? I think people are going to be central to the utilization of AI and technology. They're not going to be fully replaced by it. And I think when we look at the skills challenge and the demand that's coming, actually AI has a really important part to play to mitigate some of that demand.
Yeah. And have you got a lot of investment planned in your business to transform your digital backbone, I suppose, of the business?
Look, I think we're constantly investing in it, Anthony. That there's constantly evolution between everything from core systems through to the AI elements that can, really exploit the data that we've got, and how do we enhance the efficiency. So I think, I think we would have traditionally talked a lot about skills investment and plant and equipment investment, but we are now absolutely talking far more about digital and technology investments to support and enable more efficient delivery.
And you'll notice it doesn't come cheap. No,
it doesn't.
Making sure that pipeline, that certainty that you're able to have that investment certainty is critical, I imagine, to making sure you have that investment in technology.
Look, absolutely. Look, it doesn't come cheap, and I think the cycles are short. So I think what's becoming quite interesting in the technology space is I think people used to buy systems for the next 5 years plus. Now, actually, I think we're talking about far more sort of fast turnaround in that space. If you can guess, we're all seeing it in our own personal lives, aren't we? That the apps that we were using 6 months ago are now being outdone by another app. So, how do we integrate that speed of change is also a really important part of what we're thinking about.
Presumably, also, if it impacts and affects the people you're recruiting and the training you're providing, because while there'll always be need for people to be actually out there on the tools building stuff, there are a whole load of new skills and new challenges that you need to be able to deal with as a contractor, a modern contractor.
Well, absolutely. And I think, look, the contracting market, the construction market, it isn't just about the frontline skills. The frontline skills are clearly very important, as you say, but actually, we need to recruit a wide breadth of talent. We need people across the spectrum, whether it's finance or HR or technology. We need lots of people coming into the sector with this wide range of skills and huge enthusiasm to help us deliver the challenges ahead.
So they're not necessarily seen as exotic digital skills. They're kind of fundamental to actually making sure that productivity in your business is going up.
Absolutely. There'll be a combination of everything. There will be some of that slightly sexier type of AI investment and data, but there's also just some fundamental skills about making our business better.
Yeah. So we're started 2026, and the government's got a huge amount on its radar in terms of public investment, and of course there's a whole load of private investment which is there underpinning that. If you're advising government on one change maybe that would most improve workforce confidence and capability, what might that be? What do you need them to do?
That's a big question. I'm not sure I'm qualified necessarily, but I think the biggest thing for government, I think there's a key piece around some of this funding. I think in practical terms, as a contractor that's been trying to do this for a long time, trying to make it as easy as possible for people to get access to it. I think there is always a challenge with government. If I would look at some of the noises that are coming, which are very positive, you've also got to make it easy for people to get access to. I think if you want people to train people, to develop them, to make use of levy funding, etc., some of the bureaucracy that goes with that is overly onerous, and it's not helpful.
Right.
And it's, if anything, a deterrent to people to actually go down that path.
So it makes it hard to get that levy money actually active.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you want people recovering that levy to use in the right way. But actually, if people can't get access to it, it's very difficult to do. We're very lucky as an organisation of quite significant size and scale that we've got teams of people that understand how to do it. But actually, smaller businesses is very difficult.
Yeah, so you're not necessarily, you're actually, you feel as a business like you're getting the value out of the levy that you're putting in, whereas perhaps smaller businesses maybe don't see that value.
Well, no, I don't think we're getting as much as we could get, but we're probably better. We're probably more progressed than others are.
Right.
We could definitely get more,
right,
but it becomes very difficult to do. And hopefully, some of the flex they've talked about will come to fruition and make that easier.
Yeah. Well, certainly there's an awful lot of, as I said, there's a lot of work going on with the Construction Leadership Council and the Skills Mission Board to try to make that a much smoother process. Yes. So I'm sure there's plenty of ways that you can input into that. But looking 10 years ahead there, Matt, I mean, what for you would success look like for the UK construction and infrastructure workforce? What do we need to start doing differently now to get there?
Well, I think some of this work has to start coming to life. I think that it's the translation from, I guess, spreadsheets and talking about numbers to actually getting that work to a stage of practical delivery. I think in 10 years' time, we'll be able to look back and say, did we actually, we've got huge targets to deliver within that 10-year period. We need over the next year or so to actually start seeing that mobilise. We've got, my example, I guess, from a Clancy point of view is, the water sector is going to deliver twice as much work over the next 5 years as it did over the previous 5 years. We will know very quickly whether we're going to be on track to achieve that. And I think we're working very closely with our clients, but it's a big challenge.
Big challenges, but big opportunities. I imagine that I think you're naturally the sort of guy that kind of approaches everything with a positive outlook, but I imagine 2026, it must be, there must be a whole lot of positivity around the industry given the amount of commitment which is being made.
Oh, look, absolutely. I think it's a hugely exciting time to be in the infrastructure sector. I think there is so much opportunity. In some ways, it's quite difficult to focus on which areas do you think are best suited to your own business. I think as Clancy's, we're really excited about the role we're going to play with our clients, particularly in the water and energy markets. We're very excited about some of the work we've just started at Sizewell C, looking at things like Lower Thames Crossing as key areas of opportunity and continuing on HS2. But I think, for me, I think this is a brilliant sector. It's a brilliant market. There is huge amounts of opportunity, both in the short term and in the medium to long term. And I think we've got to make sure that we do a really good job when we talk to schools, colleges, universities about really promoting the sector as a positive place to go and work. There are some fantastic opportunities. There are some fantastic career opportunities. But I think one of my biggest concerns in some ways is that I'm not sure that young people who are finishing school or college are really thinking about our sectors as areas where there are those great career opportunities. I think we need to do a lot more as an individual organisation as Clancy's, but in conjunction with government and with our clients to make sure that construction infrastructure is seen as a really exciting proposition, because I really believe that it is.
Well, hopefully they'll all be listening to the Infrastructure Podcast and getting a very good idea of what's going on, Matt.
Absolutely.
Really good opportunities out there. Thanks so much, Matt, for taking us through the way that you see it from a Clancy perspective. Great to chat to you. It's a critical issue for the sector. Skills,
absolutely,
certainly. So thanks for sharing your thoughts with me today. I don't think you actually came down on a prediction for who's going to win the Six Nations, but I think you said England.
I think I'll go England. Yeah, I'll go England. There you go.
we heard it here first.
Exactly.
So, Matt, thanks very much for sharing your thoughts today. Great to see you.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks very much, Anthony.
Well, sadly, that's all we've got time for on the podcast now, but there's more in the pipeline for 2026 as we continue to probe the big issues facing the sector. If you haven't done so already, do check out the Infrastructure Podcast website, www.infrastructure-podcast.com, where you'll find background information and all the latest podcasts to listen to and to share. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks again to Matt, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.